Welcome to Accounting in Focus.
Hi, my name is Jeff Ingram. My wife asked me to put together a video talking about WordPress blogging and some of the different options. She's heard a lot of confusing information on the differences on the way you can set a blog up through WordPress. One of the options is WordPress.com. One of the options she's heard is WordPress.org. And she's also heard about self-hosted WordPress. So let's go look at the different options. First, you can set up a free domain from WordPress.com. It has certain advantages and disadvantages as I see them. First, it's free hosting. Second advantage is you get 3 gigabytes of space for free. That's not a lot, however, it's a good place to start. And if your blog is based strictly on text, 3 gigabytes will last you a very long time. And your WordPress software is automatically updated. You don't have to spend any time updating your WordPress software. Disadvantages: there are no custom URLs. However, as a caveat, you can still go buy a domain from a domain host and redirect the URL to there. However, once they get to the website, the URL supplied to you by WordPress, not the one that you've paid for. So you don't get the full advantage of the URL, especially for SEO purposes. The other thing is WordPress will put ads on your blog where they get the revenue. You cannot use premium themes. You cannot use VideoPress to help host videos. You cannot use custom designs. And the only support is community support. However, if you decide to pay some money, the advantages and disadvantages change quite a bit. First, you still get hosting with it. Your space is upgraded to 13 gigabytes, unless you pay more for the business version, in which case the space is unlimited. You still get the free automatic updates to WordPress. You are now allowed to use custom URLs, which you can buy directly from WordPress.com. WordPress will no longer supply any ads to your blog. You are allowed to use VideoPress along with your WordPress installation, and you can now use custom designs. However, there are still some disadvantages. One, if you're just a premium member and not a business member, then you do not have the right to use premium themes. The cost, if you pay for a year at a time, is $99 if you're premium and $299 for business. If you buy URLs from WordPress, then they cost approximately $18 a year. And now information on what WordPress.org is. WordPress.org is not a hosting site. It is the site where the foundation that runs WordPress, or the organization or company, however you want to view it, is the place where they store the WordPress software and where the developers interact to make it better. You can also get the software downloaded if you want to host it yourself, or if you get a shared hosting, which I'll go into in a minute. If the shared hosting does not support WordPress, you can download it from here and through their file manager create a WordPress installation. You can also download WordPress themes, the free ones. I'm not sure, there are premium themes that you can buy as well. I don't think you can get them through the WordPress.org site. However, I could be wrong. You can also download WordPress plugins. WordPress plugins are small pieces of software that you can use to customize your WordPress functionality, to get WordPress to act the way you want it to. With plugins, you can make your WordPress site no longer a blog, but a fully functional e-commerce website if you desire. There's great community support for WordPress here. There's a forum where you can go and ask questions for WordPress or any of the themes or plugins that are on the WordPress site. Now, there are two types of self-hosting, and I think a lot of people confuse the two. One, you can do it yourself, or two, you can do shared hosting, and I'll quickly talk about the two. If you do it yourself, you will need a PHP web server. I believe there might also be a version of WordPress that works in ASP.NET. However, the licenses for those servers are more expensive, and PHP is the native language that WordPress is created in. So the functionality of WordPress will show up here first. Fixes will show up here first if there is a ASP.NET one, which I believe there is, or at least there was for a little while. You will need a quality ISP for a couple reasons. One, if your internet goes out, your website goes down if you're hosting it in your house or wherever you have the server set up. So you'll need a place to put the server, and it will need a quality ISP so your website doesn't go down because it doesn't have internet connection. And the other thing is too, you need a little bit more powerful modem to on your server to allow information to come in and go out at the same time so your server doesn't get bogged down. You will need lots of various types of technical skills or capital. You'll need to be able to set up a web server, to install the software, to run the network internally to connect the ISP to the server, or you'll need capital to pay someone to do that for you or different people to do that for you. The cost is high. Web servers, low end, will probably cost a couple $1,000s a piece without software, maybe a little bit lower. Higher end ones that you can scale out if your blog becomes popular are very, very expensive. ISP or multiple ISPs to protect from downtime can be very expensive if available where your server is located. And obviously, if you have to pay people to do any part of this, you will have to pay them for their professional expertise. And now to talk about shared hosting. I'm going to talk about one specifically that uses a cPanel to make working on the back end of your website easy. And I'll show that a little bit in my next video where I show how easy it is to install WordPress. And once again, it's easy to install WordPress if you get the correct shared hosting. It's a much lower cost, and you'll see on the next slide it is significantly lower than even going to WordPress. And you need no special technical skills to get your website to work. Now, if you start gaining special technical skills over time and you become more sophisticated, there's more you can do. However, you're not required to know any technical skills to be able to use shared hosting. And now to talk a little bit more about shared hosting, which is my preferred method for two reasons. One, the cost is low and it's easy to customize the site to feel the way I want it to. First, you'll need a URL. Namecheap is where I buy mine from. They cost about $10.89 a year. You can often get coupon codes by Googling Namecheap coupons, the current month and year that you're in, and you might be able to find coupon codes to make the cost a little bit cheaper. Sometimes there are deals if you buy them for multiple years going forward that the price can be a little bit cheaper as well. However, that's not always true. You will need to change the URL name servers wherever you buy your URL from. Now, that might sound complicated. However, if you cannot figure out how to do it through the website, there's free customer support that can walk you through it. The host where you buy your hosting from will supply you with what the name servers need to be. That way, the URL will point towards your blog. Now, Hostgator is the company I use to do my shared hosting through. And if you buy the cheapest plan, which is more than enough to run a WordPress blog from, over 36 months, it will only cost $47.52 a year. It's a little bit more, about twice as much if you pay monthly, and if you pay annually or over a 2-year period, there's a cost between the two. However, I would advise if you can afford it to buy it in the longest term as possible. That way you don't have to worry about it expiring, and you get the lowest possible cost for the hosting. The lowest possible plan they have is called the Hatchling Plan. And essentially, if you buy in 36-month blocks, it will cost you a little less than $4 a month a year. There's free customer support. I've used it There are multiple ways to get to it. I prefer using the chat tool. They've always been very good and quick to help resolve any problems with my hosting account. You get unlimited space and unlimited bandwidth. Bandwidth is something you have to worry about with shared hosting. It's the amount of data that they will allow to pass back and forth between clients and your blog. And typically, blogs don't use a lot until you start getting a lot of clients. However, it can become an issue over time. And if there's limited bandwidth, you might run out, in which case they will not be able to find your website. So, unlimited bandwidth is a good thing. Now, for some of you people who've not worked a lot with blogging, you might not understand why you need both a URL and hosting. Well, here's an easy way I like to think about it, and I tell people to try and get them to understand. First, let's think about accessing a website like you would call someone. The URL is like their telephone. Well, it's like the number they dial on their telephone. Once they dial the URL, it will transmit the signal to the server, the place that your blog is housed. And then the two can communicate back and forth as long as the client wants to. So you need both the URL and a hosting account or your own server to be able to communicate with clients over the internet or blog readers or whatever you want to consider them. I hope this video has been useful to you. If you like it, please like or subscribe to my wife's channel here, even though most of it's about accounting. I will be supplying the links to the hosting and to Namecheap. Please use these if you want to open up an account. I will get a bit of a kickback if you do, and I would appreciate that. If not, go find your own host and enjoy blogging. Have a good day.